What's going on, everybody? It's not your normal Reed. I'm your host, Reed Jones, and joining me today is 14-year NBA veteran and the 2008 NBA champion with the Boston Celtics, Kendrick Perkins. Perk, how you doing today?
Hey, Reed, man, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I like your setup, very professional. I like how you rolling right now, man. Thank you for having me on. Just surviving this pandemic till it's all over. It will pass.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's a privilege to interview you. Just interview anybody, especially someone of your caliber of a player. You're an NBA champion. And then so I'm just going to ask you some questions. So growing up, it says that you grew up in Beaumont. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep,
But
Beaumont, Texas.
Beaumont, Texas, and you posted about it on your Instagram the other day. You went to Clifton J. Ozen High School, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, your senior year put up some monster numbers. About 28 points, 16 boards, and 8 blocks as a senior. So like growing up, like when did you first started playing basketball? Like at what age? And then at what age did you know that like you're on a different level than everybody? Not just like size wise, obviously, because you're 6'10" in a center, but just like talent wise.
Man, what's crazy is that growing up in Beaumont, it's a population of about 250,000. When I the crazy thing is my my favorite sport that I was playing, the sport that I loved the most was actually football. Like I played tight end and defensive end all the way up to my freshman year in high school. So all through elementary, middle school, I loved to play football. Basketball was secondary. And then all of a sudden I started growing. And once you start growing, you start realizing that you're taller than everyone. And then all of a sudden I get to the sixth grade. I'm like 6'1". I'm reaching, I'm jumping up, I'm grabbing the rim, and I'm like, hold on, man. I'm kind of taking liking into this. And so my seventh grade year, I tried for the eighth grade team, and I make the team starting lineup. And I'm like, oh, I made the team, man. I'm starting. By then, I'm 6'4". I'm dunking. I'm making a little noise just around town. And all of a sudden, I get picked up by the Houston Hoops AAU team. And ever since then, man, it took off. It took off tremendously. Well, basketball became my number one sport. I threw football to the side. I quit playing. I started putting all my energy into hooping. My high school coach, Andre Butte, who was also the same coach as Steven Jackson, was my high school coach at the time. And I remember, playing for the Hoops and going kill in different AAU tournaments around the country, the Las Vegas tournament, going play at Disney Wild World of Sports and, doing my thing. And then all of a sudden, my freshman year, I go to ABCD camp and I kill and I come out of there ranked the number one player in the country over LeBron at the time. And, that's when I really hit the how should I say it? Like I started really making waves through the media. It wasn't like we had social media at the time and all these different platforms. So you had to go to your to your desktop computer, Google where you rank that, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, at the end of the day, I worked very hard, man, and to get where I needed to go. Sonny Vaccaro was very instrumental in my life and helping me through the process. And I started dedicating myself to it, waking up at 5 in the morning, going hit the track. I missed my senior skip day. I missed my senior field trip. Like I missed a lot of things because I was sacrificing because of basketball. And then once you start looking at the mock draft and they kind of have you going first round and stuff like that, then you like, hold on, it's not out of reach. Now all of a sudden you go to your games and it's your senior year in high school and you see Sam Presti and B.J. Armstrong and GMs from the Washington Wizards sitting at your game, at your high school game down there in old country Beaumont, Texas, where you may see an alligator crossing the road, man. So it was like, man, this is so surreal. But, that's where it all started from, man. It all started from there. I was raised by my grandparents. My mom died at an early age. My daddy left me, moved to New Zealand, played professional basketball. So, that's pretty much the foundation of how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible story, of playing football and then ended up, focusing on basketball. I mean, like I wrote down, like I did some research, and it says that, in 2003, you were the number 5 overall high school recruit average through about like 10 to 12 different websites. Your average was about 5. The 4 over you was LeBron at 1 and Luol Deng at 2. And,
Mhm.
Luol Deng ended up being a phenomenal player at Duke. Shannon Brown and then Nadubi Ebi. And can you guess who was ranked 1 spot behind you?
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul. That's
Yeah,
right.
CP3. He
Yep.
was
And
the number 1 point guard in our class.
yeah, I mean that class is killer. Some other people. Paul Millsap was ranked 66th. Trevor Ariza was 19th, and PJ Tucker was 79th. So if those players all got together, that'd be a pretty scary lineup.
Yeah, listen. Listen, Ree. I always say they always talk about that 9-16, but 2003 we were right there under them. Like we
Oh
had a
yeah.
squad. We had a squad, especially our Mickey D's class.
Oh yeah. I mean, people always say about the 2003 draft. Oh, you have, LeBron, Bosh, Melo, and D Wade, but a lot of people forget you were drafted in that draft class. Kyle Korver was drafted in
Mhm.
that draft class, and Kirk Heinrich. That's a very solid draft class of,
Nick
not
Collison.
just yeah, and not just Nick Collison. That's right.
Yeah.
Former teammate, number retired by the Thunder.
Right.
But it's not just top heavy. You have a lot of like great role players. I mean, you won a ring as a role player with the Celtics. You were that veteran presence for the Thunder. And Kyle Korver is still in the league. On the arguably the best team in the league, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Still providing buckets. And Kirk Heinrich was the backup point guard for Derrick Rose. At MVP.
And you know what's crazy? What people don't realize, when you look at that 2003 draft class, go look at that class and go look at, because like the average career for NBA players, 3.5 to 4 years. Go look at, in that class, go look at how many players had played 10 years or more, like that had surpassed that 3.5, 4 year mark and played 10 plus years in our class. Like, you'll be surprised.
Yeah,
That's why
there's
I
a
say
lot.
that 2003 draft class was really special. A lot of talent, a lot of unsung heroes, a lot of great role players, like you said, and a lot of superstars, Hall of Famers. So I mean, at the end of the day, man, it was a blessing, to be part of that class. And just thinking about 2003, I was just thinking about, like, certain scenarios where, how I got drafted by the Boston Celtics. I only worked out for 4 teams, all 3 Texas teams and the Celtics. And I remember when I went with the Celtics, I had a great workout. They called me back. They made me stay an extra day, and they told me they was taking me with the pick. That's all I needed to hear. Because if I wasn't going first round, I was going to Memphis, because I had already signed with John Calipari in the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, and I mean, as you said that you were drafted by the Celtics, but what a lot of people don't know is that you were drafted by the Grizzlies and then traded to the Celtics
Mm-hmm.
with Marcus Banks for, I believe, Dante Jones and someone else,
I think it was Troy Bell.
Troy Bell.
And let me tell you what happened with that. So what happened was that it was a undercover swap,
Yeah,
because what ended up happening is that Boston wanted Marcus Banks, but they had the 16th and the 20th pick. I think the Grizzlies had the 13th pick, and what ended up happening was Seattle Supersonics had the 14th pick, and they were going to take Marcus Banks. So of course, Chris Wallace, who was in the front office with Boston, had just got the GM job with the Grizzlies. Him and Danny said, "Hey, you draft my guys, I draft your guys, and then we'll make the trade." So that's how that ended up happening.
yeah, and I mean, I wrote down in your first 4 years with the Celtics, before the famous 07-08 team, you guys had a combined record of 138 and 190. You had 3 different coaches, a lot of guys coming in and out. I mean, you played with Rafe LaFrentz for a year or two. You played with Ricky Davis, Vin Baker, and old Gary Payton. And, it says that you didn't really, you played about 16 minutes per game. But then, the summer of '07 happens and you get Kevin Garnett and you get Ray Allen. So, I mean, what was going through your head at the time about like how your role was going to change as, a team that was, still really good, but now it's like, oh, we have not only do we have Paul Pierce and myself, but now we got two killers in Garnett and Allen, and we got a great young up and coming point guard in Rondo, and and Doc Rivers, the culture that he's instilling. So like, what was going on in your mind, and like your first reaction for each of those guys that ended up coming to the Celtics?
So what ended up happening is when you're a guy coming out of high school, when they still had their rule, and you getting drafted late first round, or something to that nature. If you're not like a guy like LeBron James, or any top notch that's gonna come in and play right away, then what you're what they're called a project. So they're trying to work you in each and every year. And I always say this to a lot of people. People always say, oh, he should have went to college for a year or did this and that. But nothing prepares you for the NBA like the NBA. To me, I didn't play that much my first 2 years at all. But I was around NBA. I was able to study it, what to do on the court, what to do on the court, what not to do on the court, what to do off the court, what not to do off the court. Like, I learned all those things. I had great vets: Walter McCarty, Vin Baker, Paul Pierce, Tony Batiste, Tony Delp, Eric Williams. I had guys to teach me the ropes, and I learned the definition of hard work. Because see, what people don't understand is it's hard to get to the NBA, but it's even harder to stay in the NBA because 60 new players are coming in every year trying to take your roster spot. And that's the thing that I love most about Danny Ainge. He used to always tell me, hey, Perk, I'm going out to scout to try to find somebody that's better than you, so you better stay on top of your game. And I just was working. I was working. The Celtics, after my 4-year rookie contract was up, they seen the potential in me. They gave me a 4-year, $16 million extension. And, I just kept getting better. And, it was crazy because I actually was, I was hurt when we actually made the trade for KG because I was so close with Al Jefferson. And in our minds, it was going to be us two. He was the power forward, I was the center. That's how it was going to be, and we was going to make something special happen. And all of a sudden, overnight, boo, they make a trade. They bring in the big ticket, and next thing you know, your role got to change or you out of there because now it becomes it's about championships. It's not about winning ball games, developing these young players and trying to win ball games and making sure these young players make the all-star team. But no, this is about championships. So the best thing that happened to me was Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers came along and he installed me to be the player who I was throughout my whole career and be okay with it. He was like, Perk, be a star in your role and you will have a long career. Don't worry about making an all-star game or none of that. Worry about winning these championships and you'll have a long career. So at the age of 24, 25, I instantly became a role player of a major piece, but a role player to a championship team. And the thing he always used to tell me was like, don't take this situation for granted. You're playing with 3 future Hall of Famers. And like no other, man, playing with KG is just like, he was so unselfish that it rubbed off not only on me, but everyone else. Because when he got to the team, he put himself last. And we all knew that KG was the best player on that team, but he said, this is Paul's team. Perk, you and I go set screens and get Ray open. If y'all need me, Doc, to get a bucket on this block, I'm going to give him this work. But Perk, man, you going to anchor this defense. And I watched him sacrifice, and I'm like, hold on, this is a guy that had won every individual accolade possible. And he's sacrificing and taking the back seat. I had to also. So I think that was the best thing for my career because I was able to have a 14-year career just because I was able to be a star in my role and be comfortable with who I was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many people nowadays that, they focus too much on numbers, but a lot of people, you need to look into the role. I mean, you're the one of the prime examples of, your impact doesn't show up in the box score. You're setting the screen assists, like you said, for Ray and Paul. You're doing the defensive switching with you and KG. That type of stuff doesn't show up in the box score. And there's a reason that you're a starting center for an NBA champion. That just doesn't happen. Nobody really lucks into that or just walks into that situation. You
Right.
have to work for that and like have that and accept that role, like you said, especially from a younger age. It's not like you know, you've been in the league for 10 years and you're just like you want a ring. You know what I mean? So I
Nah,
mean,
no, but you're right though, and see, that's the problem with a lot of kids. And as I became older and became a vet, I watched a lot of rookies come in that had a lot of talent, but they didn't want to accept their roles. They wanted to be superstars. Everyone can't be a superstar. You find your niche, you be great at who you are, and you will have a long career. You will make good money, and you will have a great time doing something that you love. But a lot of people don't cope well with that, and that's why the average years is 3.5 to 4 years, because if you don't get it, you're out. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, man, you hit on a great point with that, because even now, like me personally, I put out a tweet about 3 weeks ago. I said that Robert Ory was the greatest role player in NBA history, and he was. But
7
here's a
rings.
guy. It's a guy that averaged 7 points a game, but he got what, 7 championships, and was crucial to. He was a vital piece to every one of those franchises that he won the championship with. So at the end of the day, I'm trying to teach kids out there, the new generation, that everyone is not going to be a Steph Curry. Everyone is not going to be a LeBron James. Everyone is not going to be a Giannis, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. But if you do the right things, you can be a Jared Dudley. And that's how when we got to the conversation about Jared Dudley and why Jared Dudley had to have a job and Carmelo didn't at the time, because he fit better. His role was, you know who Jared Dudley is. He's going to stay ready. You know what he's going to bring to the table. He's not going to pout about minutes. You could play him for not. You could play him. You could not play him for 10 games, and he's still going to be the same guy, clapping, cheering people on, being in guys' ear. And when his number is called, he's ready to play. And that's what you need. And that's all I'll be trying to say to a lot of young people. Find your niche, be great at it, and just be a star in your role.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for sure. So many championship teams, talk about role players, and, that potential for a role player can end up getting you a bigger contract or superstar status. Last year everybody was saying how Pascal Siakam's the role player, and now he's an all-star, all-NBA player, and then like on the Warriors teams, you have guys like JaVale McGee. Well, now he's on the Lakers. In the first, before he went to the Warriors, JaVale McGee was kind of like the joke of the league in a way. He was always on Shaqtin' a Fool and, making all these like careless mistakes. And then he goes to the Warriors and he has that second chance and realizes what he has. And now he's a 2-time NBA champion and a potential third with the Lakers if this season ever happens, if they end up making it to the finals. So you and KG are definitely both have that tough guy reputation, old school, back to the basket. If push comes to shove, where I'm coming. When you found out that KG was coming to the Celtics, and like, did you think that there might have been any conflict because of like how intense you both are? And, when did you kind of realize that, you can share a court together and like practice together without it, engulfing in flames and having some type of like conflict?
Well, here's the thing, man. When you're talking about the battles that KG and I used to have when I was young and he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm talking about we headbutting each other. We, sweat dripping in each other's face, where security guards got to break us up in the back at the end of the game, walking to our locker rooms. Like, we couldn't stand each other. So when he first got traded to the Celtics in, like, I think it was July, he never reached out to me. I never reached out to him. And I kept saying, man, I'm like, man, how's this going to work? Doc was like, man, you and Kevin going to be great together. And I'm like, man, dude don't really like me. I ain't really feeling him, but whatever, we'll see. So I was actually having my first child, and everyone was supposed to be reporting back right after Labor Day. But I had to wait because I was having my first child, and we was going to training camp. We had training camp overseas in Rome. And so I came in a little late, like 2 weeks later than everyone. And when I got in, I just remember I first walked in the locker room and he was sitting in his seat. So I'm like, man, how I supposed to? So I'm like, hey, man, what's up, KG, man? What's going on? He like, no, what's up? What's up, Perk? How you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. So we in the locker room. I'm putting my shoes together. We don't say a word to each other. Go on the court, do drills. Still don't say nothing to each other. Next 2 days, we're leaving to go on a 3-week trip for training camp to Rome. And all of a sudden, we're on the plane ride. We on the plane, 7-hour plane ride. We still don't say nothing to each other like that. You know, we little bits and pieces, but nothing really trying to get to know one another. All of a sudden, the first day of training camp, our practice was so intense and so real that we was battling out. Like we went 2 hours straight, and you know, our second unit was really, really good. Like Eddie House, James Posey, Leon Poe, Big Baby. Like we had some guys that was going at our first unit. And man, we went at it. And KG and I was talking noise to Leon and Big Baby and Eddie House. We battling it out. And ever since then, Doc Rivers called that the best practice he ever had in life. He canceled the second practice because that's how hard we went. And ever since then, from that moment on, me and KG been like, man, it's been crazy. It's like he's been like that big brother I never had. Like from that point on to now, like just talked to him this morning, like one of my best friends in the world. Like, and it's crazy. We just clicked and it was all she wrote after that.
Yeah, and about that '08 team, at what point, you know, you guys are playing and, you know, everybody's starting to learn their role, and Doc, you know, Doc Rivers is adjusting to having two new, not just players, but all-star, superstar, you know, decreased roles, decreased shots and everything, and trying to balance it out. At what point of the season did it kind of click for the team that you had something special going? Not just like, oh, we're, you know, we could make the, you know, Eastern Conference Finals or the finals, but at what point did you like kind of know and realize like the moment like we could win the title, like we're the champs?
Man, listen, we the way we started off, think about it. The Washington Wizards was really good. You remember they had Gilbert Arenas, Caron Butler, Brandon Haywood, I think Antoine Jameson. They were one of the elite teams in the East, and we had them first game of the season. And I remember Gilbert Arenas, he came out with a statement in the article saying y'all crowning them, they not all that. And they was the first game of the season. And man, they came into Boston and we smacked them by 40. And ever since then, man, we never looked back. Like we had a record at one point in time. We was like 27-3, and we was rocking and rolling. Like everyone knew they role. And the thing about it was what people don't understand is that Doc, he told everyone their roles, but we policed ourselves, man. We policed ourselves. Like when you think about the vet leadership that we had on that team, you talking about KG, Paul, Ray, James Posey, who's already a champion, who's an unsung hero in my eyes coming from Miami. We had Eddie House. We had a group of guys that the only thing that they needed to accomplish was winning championships. And then you add a Sam Cassell and P.J. Brown, and with a mixture of young, real goons of myself, a mastermind at the point guard and Rajon Rondo. Then we got two fierce dogs coming in off the bench, and Tony Allen and Big Baby and Leon Poe. So, man, we was well put together. And if anyone got out of the line, Doc didn't have to check that shit. We checked it. Like, we checked it on the spot in the locker room. So KG was the tone setter of no BS. So we, since day one, our goal was to win a championship, and we approached every game like that.
Yeah, and that year, that kind of revitalized the Celtics-Lakers rivalry. In '08, you guys played the Lakers led by the late, great Kobe Bryant with Pau Gasol and Derek Fisher and, being coached again by Phil Jackson. Can you tell me anything about any of those battles, especially with, like, Kobe and Pau, two great players that ended up, winning the next 2 years?
Well, like, man, it was crazy because we had pumped Powell so much in 2008. Like, they were calling him soft in the paper. Like, we literally, KG and I was like, man, we was banging him up like all elbows, getting physical with him, to the point where, like, Kobe kind of started calling him out to make, like, I never said this, how great Kobe was. He gave Paul Gasol toughness. Like, how crazy does that sound? But it's so real. And you look at the next two championships that they won. Think about it. He had to battle against the Dwight Howard, and he had to go again against Rashid and KG, myself, Big Baby, and he held his own. But when you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant, look back to the 2010 finals. When we played them in the finals in 2010, every game that was played, the team that won the rebounding battle won the game. And Kobe Bryant knew that. And if you go back and look at his game 7, he didn't shoot well from the field. He shot 6 for 24, but he had 15 rebounds in the game 7. I mean, that's how much he willed his team to victory. Now, although I wasn't playing, who knows if we would have won, but either or, I mean, like, you just couldn't. That was a real Mamba mentality. Like, 6 for 24, but you know what? I'm about to find another way to affect the game, and he did that. So, just that Lakers-Celtic rivalry and that battle during those years, man, that was great, man. I mean, like, the travel to L.A., the energy inside the arena. You're on the court with Kobe Bryant, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. Like, these are, like, we're talking about first ballot Hall of Famer type dudes, man, that's on the court one time playing against one of the greatest rivalries in sports history in the Celtic Lakers, and battling it out, man, like, sweating, tired. Game 7, like, Doc Rivers, Phil Jackson, greatest head coach of all time in my eyes. Like, all that played a part, man. And it's just, win, lose, or draw, it's still memories that you'll never forget. And I was just honored and blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's so crazy just to think about that, we still that we've lost Kobe, at such a
Mm-hmm.
young age, and just to see the transition that he was making, from a great player to even a greater man. I mean, he won an Oscar and he was doing everything for girls basketball, as we saw last night with the WNBA draft. His daughter and the 2 others that died in the helicopter crash were honored. And it's just crazy to think about that he's gone, but just, the battles that you guys had. I mean, like you said, just that energy, I mean, you look up and you see, Bill Russell's number in the rafters, you see Kareem's numbers in the rafters. You're at that point, Kobe Bryant's already an MVP, 3-time champ, but
Right.
before you guys even win. And then, when you guys win, now it's Kevin Garnett. He's got a ring now. He's got an MVP. He's got a Defensive Player of the Year that he won the year that you guys won the title. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just that energy. And, you're talking about in '09 when you guys did make the finals, a lot of people really kind of don't really give you guys as much credit because that was the year that Kevin Garnett went down. And a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't give you specifically credit because in '09 against the Bulls, you put up 13, 12, and 3 blocks per game to beat the Bulls. And then you went on to play the Magic, who obviously ended up making the finals, and put up 10, 12, and 2 blocks per game against, that team that made the finals, like in prime Dwight Howard, reigning Defensive Player of the Year that year, you know, MVP runner-up that year. So a lot of people don't really give you credit for that. And, you guys were this close without Kevin Garnett.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, who knows how that could have gone because that's your title defense. You're coming off – it's the year after you guys won the title. You're pumped up. You guys are doing great, and KG goes down, and you still almost make the finals without quite arguably your most important and best player.
Yeah, I know, and that's a great point, man. And I think that's when I was starting to hit my real stride, man. And because that following season, I was almost close to making the All-Star game. But even past that, when you look at it, like when our starting five was healthy, we never lost a playoff series. So, at the end of the day, I'm thinking in my mind, like we would have won at least 2 out of 3 championships for sure. But due to health issues, we didn't. That's neither here or there. But it was still fun, man. It was great runs. We had great battles. I was part of a great playoff series. The Bulls Celtics is probably one of the greatest playoff series still to this day. All the overtime games and stuff like that. So, at the end of the day, man, it's crazy because I think about the 2010 championship more than I do the '08 championship because I was like, we should have won that one. Even without me, we should have had that one up in the Raptors because, we was up 14 going into the fourth quarter. We blew the lead, but, it's neither here or there. But just that whole Boston run, man, was so fun on and off the court. The spirit, the energy, the camaraderie, it was just crazy, man. So, at the end of the day, like I said before, man, our starting five, we never lost the playoff series when healthy, and that's facts.
Yeah, I mean, that's just crazy. Just that five specifically, never lost a playoff series. I mean, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest starting fives. Period. As you said, you guys only won a ring, but you should basically have two.
Right.
You didn't get as much as you guys had the potential to. Obviously, just injury reason. That's just straight up bad luck. I mean, you look at kind of like it. Kind of reminds me of LeBron in his second stint with Cleveland, in 2015, Kevin Love goes down against the Celtics, and then Kyrie goes down game 1 of the finals, and the Cleveland still loses 4-2. So, for them to only get that one ring out of 4 years, because KD ends up going, your former teammate, it's just kind of like what would have happened if those two guys were healthy in 2015, and it's the same thing, you guys almost made the finals in '09. What if KG's healthy? And then in 2010, what if you're healthy? Just an extra big body to put against Pau Gasol just to wear him down. And, they had Bynum at the time, who was an all-star and Metta World Peace, formerly Ron Artest and Derek Fisher. I mean, those were two great teams. And to talk about your Celtics run, the year following with the Celtics, you end up actually getting traded to the Thunder for Jeff Green. What was going on in your head at the time about obviously, you built this, this family, not even like a brotherhood, but like a family, and with the Celtics, with those players and Doc Rivers, and now you're going to the Thunder. This is Kevin Durant's 4th season. This is Russell Westbrook's 3rd season, and this is James Harden's 2nd season. And now you're the big veteran. You're the championship, experienced guy. So what was your thought process when you found out that you're getting traded to the Thunder, and like what was going through your head, and then like, positive stuff, negative stuff, and then when did you realize like, hey, this isn't actually a bad place to be?
Well, man, to be honest, like when I got traded, I was hurt. I thought it was the end of the world. I had spent 8.5 years with the Celtics. That's all I knew. I was leaving my brothers. We had a real family, man, on and off the court. So it hurted me. I cried like a baby. I ain't gonna lie. Got traded. Got to Oklahoma City, man, and Sam Presti, Troy Weaver, Mr. Bennett, man, they embraced me with open arms, and they made me feel very, very welcome. Everyone kept saying I was the missing piece to the puzzle. That's what they needed, was a center. And when I got there, it took me about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm like, hold on, I done struck gold. I got Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, James Harden. I got a young Serge Ibaka. These guys want to work hard. I remember the first meeting I had with Scott Brooks. He mentioned, he called me in his office, and he was like, Perk, these guys is something you never seen before. We call this Oklahoma University. I said, what you mean? He said, man, these guys work so hard like college players. And man, after I started playing with them, I remember my first game playing with those guys was against the Washington Wizards, and we went there and got a big time win, and then we just kept rolling, and we won 10 in a row, and I'm like, hold on, man, this is where I need to be at. Man, we just kept improving, man, and first year there, we make a run to the Western Conference Finals, and next year we go to the finals, then the Western Conference Finals, and we just doing our thing, man. And it was a blessing, man, because I'm playing with these young guys that really could hoop and they could play. Like the future is bright. But I was like a big brother to them. They looked up to me, man. So when I got there, man, everything was all gold, man. Oklahoma City embraced me with open arms. They gave me a contract extension before I even played one game. Danny did me a favor. He knew that they was gonna pay me. Everything about it, man, just happened to turn out pretty damn good. I wish we was able to win the championship, but we didn't. But we had some great runs. Loud City was popping. Like it was popping in there. Like, you know what I'm saying? We was making a lot of noise. And, still in all, you look at that ball club, man, it could be a good team that could match up with anybody. But you got to understand, people don't realize I was 26 at the time. I was an old head, you know what I'm saying, to those young guys. These guys were 22, 23, 21. They were still trying to accomplish stuff individually. So I had to install in them about, championships, but still letting them rock out. So at the end of the day, man, it didn't take me long to get over it. I still love my brothers. I still had much love for my brothers in Boston. I was still conversating with them every day. We was talking every day and stuff like that. But, once I got to OKC, man, they embraced me with open arms, and I loved everything about it.
Yeah, I mean that Thunder team has so many potential what ifs, just it's like a snowball effect. You guys, how you said that, you make the finals the second year that you're there, you sweep the defending Mavericks, the champions, then you beat the Lakers, then you beat the Spurs, and now you're playing against, the Heatles, the big three, LeBron, and it's like even though you guys didn't win, everybody knew like this team is at least getting a championship because it's
Right.
they reached their potential faster than anybody realized, and a lot of things that like and you had Harden coming off the bench, and like I remember I was watching a thing that you were on, how you said that he had that 40 piece against Phoenix off the bench, like a lot of people don't realize like that starting five too. You have Russ, he's got an MVP, all-time All-Stars, one of the greatest point guards ever. You got Harden, one MVP, arguably should have more, was a game away several times from making the finals. You got KD, MVP, two-time champ, finals MVP. And then even, Serge Ibaka, who got a ring this past year, is a great, that veteran presence. And then obviously you and, Nick Collison, Scott Brooks, and all that. So, why do you think that you guys reached that pinnacle of the finals so early in 2012? Before people were saying that, they were maybe a year or two off, but then you guys make the finals before anybody even expects that.
Well, that just goes to show you how talented those guys were. Not only talented, they had a high basketball IQ. When I got there, it was strictly focused, strictly business. We were locked in at shoot-arounds. But that just goes to show you how great of a player Kevin Durant was. It shows you how great of a player James Harden is. It shows you how great of a player Russell Westbrook is. Because remember, we was down 0-2 to the San Antonio Spurs and ran off 4 straight. First of all, you got to have a lot of heart. You got to be, you got to be really, really talented. And they made big plays after big plays, man. And all 3 of those guys I knew were going to be very, very special. I knew that, I had that feeling that they couldn't keep the team together. I knew James needed his own team in due time because he wasn't going to be able to be the player that he is today under Russ and Kevin Durant. So when you look at it, man, they achieved and accomplished so much because they were so talented. And they were so relentless. But then you got to give a lot of credit to Scott Brooks because he demanded a lot out of them on the defensive end especially. but he let them rock out offensively. But defensively, we were always top 5 in the league in every category when Scott Brooks was the coach, and I think he don't get enough credit for that.
Yeah, and I mean how you're saying that Harden, how he, sixth man of the year, and then gets traded to Houston, the year after you make the finals and everything, and then now here he is, scoring nearly 40 points per game, and MVP arguably should have more and all that. So everybody kind of knew that, with those three guys, that one of them should leave, and because of just, how talented they are, that there's no way that you can have these three guys together for that long.
Right.
So obviously Harden ended up succeeding, but, a few months ago you made major headlines. I mean, it was talked about everywhere about the little Twitter beef that you and KD were having about on Russell Westbrook Day, about how you said he's Mr. Thunder, the greatest Thunder, and then, KD had to respond back and everything. And so how exactly do you feel about KD leaving? And for the listeners that don't really understand what you meant about Russell Westbrook being the greatest Thunder player ever, do you want to kind of explain your thought process about that?
So here it is, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we all know that KD is the best player to ever put on the Thunder jersey. But when we talk about the greatest Thunder of all time, we're talking about Russell Westbrook. I mean, he holds all the records in every category, and KD left that door open when he decided to leave. Russ decided to stay, and he did what he had to do. Russ embraced that opportunity, embraced the role, and he took it on full head of steam. So, at the end of the day, no one is knocking KD for his decision. He made that decision. But, on that particular day, all I was doing was praising Russell Westbrook for what he deserved and what he earned in Oklahoma City. And I guarantee you, every Oklahoma City Thunder fan feel the same exact way that I feel, that he's the greatest Thunder of all time. It's just like if you was to look at the Raptors. Kyle Lowry is the greatest Raptor of all time. Is he the best player? No, but he's the greatest Raptor. He is Mr. Raptor. And I just think KD thought that, I was shooting a slug at him, which I wasn't. And then that's how it kind of escalated and went all the way left. But, at the end of the day, man, I'm never going to stop being me. And to me, I was praising Russ because Russ is one guy that gets so much hate when it comes to fans and media and all this, but nobody ever want to give him his flowers and his roses. Like, man, that man has done some tremendous things in this league, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So on that day, I hate that we even had that Twitter beef because for the simple fact, I think it took away from Russell Westbrook moment when we should have been praising him. Here it is, we on here Twitter beefing about some dumb stuff that was irrelevant because someone just, whatever the case may be, was in their feelings and took it the wrong way. It wasn't like what I said. It was, I'm praising Russell Westbrook. I was going on ESPN, and that's all it was.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure. I especially really like that remark you made about Kyle Lowry with the Raptors. I mean, he's got all those franchise records, but is he a better straight up player than Kawhi or Vince Carter and maybe even DeMar DeRozan? No, but he's got all those records, and he's played with them for an more extended period of time than everyone. So that allows him that 10 years of eliteness instead of like 2 or 3 years of just
Right.
top tier. And so going back about the whole KD thing, where do you remember like where you were in the first stuff going through your head when, July 4th, 2016, you find out that KD is leaving for the team that you guys were one game away from beating in the Western Conference Finals? A lot of people forget that, Cleveland beat them 3-1 at 73-9, but you guys were still also right there.
Well, I was at my house and I wasn't part of the team at the time. But Katie and I were really close. And I just told him, man, hey man, make the best decision for you. Do whatever you want to do. Like, do what you feel like you want to do that's gonna make you happy. I would have preferred him to stay in Oklahoma City. Hell, I told him I would have preferred him to go to the Wizards and play for his hometown team. But, you know, he chose to play with the Warriors. And to KD's defense, he took a lot of heat from a lot of people. And he put his legacy on the line to go play for the Warriors, because if they wouldn't have won a championship, his legacy would always be tarnished, because he joined the team and didn't deliver. But he did deliver. He did deliver. He won 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, you know what I'm saying, and went there and did what he was supposed to do. So he probably had the most pressure ever as a player to win a championship or 2. And he did that. He delivered in great fashion, especially on the big stage. But, you know, I mean, I wasn't, like, at the time, it was about, because KD was always a person that always wanted to make everyone else happy and cared about how everybody else felt. And I was like, you know, man, at the end of the day, man, do what you want to do, you know. And people don't understand, it wasn't just KD going to Golden State. Like, Golden State recruited the hell out of him. Like, they had meetings to get him there. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't like it was just KD calling, blowing. They was calling, blowing his phone up. So, you know, at the end of the day, man, he made the decision. He went there. He did what he was supposed to do. He left, and he started a new journey. I don't hold it against him. You can't take away championships. You can't take away final MVPs. He still had to go out there and play the game of basketball.
Yeah, exactly. You know, a lot of people, how you said, he took so much heat from the media. I mean, you know, before the season even started, every single day, every single hour of the day, everybody was talking about how much they didn't like it, how much, you know, they're not, if he wins, they're not going to count it. You know, but at the end of the day, how he said, at the end of the day, he has 2 rings and 2 finals MVPs. You know, and everybody's like, oh, not all rings are created equal. Well, you could say that about every ring. You know, last year, the Raptors, it's like, well, Clay got hurt. KD was hurt. You know, the 2 years before, you have the KD thing. The year with Cleveland, it's like, okay, what if Draymond plays? And so every single ring could have that potential, oh, you know, the little asterisk next to it about, oh, what if this happened? I mean, even how we talked about 2010, you know, what if you played? So that's what I mean. 50 years from now, no one's going to remember. Everybody's just going to say Kevin Durant as of today.
At the end of the day, like, no one would look at that, man. And like the great Tim Duncan always said, you need about 15 to 20% of luck to win the championship. Now, does luck have anything to do with injuries? Yes. If you the opposite team, you ain't wishing injury on nobody, but if someone get hurt, I mean, that's luck on your side. So, I mean, there's nothing that you could control about that. But Tim Duncan always said, in order to win the championship, you need, 15 to 20% of luck.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. And so now we're going to move on to a little what if type stuff. So you've obviously played with some first ballot Hall of Fame teammates and some great teammates. You know, just to name a few, you have Kevin Garnett, who just got inducted, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Rondo, KD, Russ, Harden, Ibaka. A lot of people don't remember that you played with LeBron for a little bit. You played with Anthony Davis for a little bit, and Shaq for 17 games in his last season. So I'm going to say 6 players, and you get to say 5 players plus yourself that you think could beat this team. And these are 6 players that played in the time period that your career was. So the 6 players are Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady, Tim Duncan, Dirk, and Giannis. So now you're the GM, and you're the GM, player, coach, it all. What 5 former teammates of yours do you think that you could have all in their prime, not specifically just when they played with you, but in their prime that could beat that team?
I'm going to roll with KG. I'm going to take Kevin Durant. I'm going to take Anthony Davis. I'm going to take LeBron James. And I'm going to take Russell Westbrook. That's my 5. And I feel like bring it. Bring the smoke. That 5 right there, bringing the heat. That's my 5 right there.
Yeah, that'd be a scary lineup. I don't know how everybody would feel about that. You know, it kind of be the same thing. Like, oh, what if what is this player? What if they win the ring? But I mean that starting five is scary, and I mean even the players you didn't name, you could still maybe even put a team together that could beat
Yeah,
that six.
Ray, Rondo, Ray, Paul Pierce, it's still some
Yeah.
different guys that you could throw in there. You know what I'm saying? So but that's the guys that I roll with if I had to do a starting five.
Yeah, and so how we talked about at the beginning, you're regarded as one of the tough guys in the league. You're just that mean player, like push come to shove. You bully ball. You got that dog mentality in you. Excluding yourself, because obviously I think that you're up there. Who are your Mount Rushmore? Your four tough guys of all time that no one wants to smoke with them.
So
Nothing to do with them.
that's easy. That's easy. I got Dennis Rodman, the Worm, right? In this no particular order. You got to go with Charles Oakley. You have to go with Zach Randolph, and I got to put in Ben Wallace. That's my Mount Rushmore right there. Them four guys, pretty
Man,
strong.
I would
I
not
don't
want to
think
see.
nobody want to mess with them.
No, I did not want to see those four guys in a back alley or something.
Right, right, right.
I mean, Ben Wallace, just the afro alone, that makes it like you don't want to mess with a man with an afro that big, and then you look down at his arms and you're like, no, thank you.
Think about it. Think about it. The year that they won the championship, he guarded Shaq by himself, no help.
He
Like,
went
can you
undrafted,
imagine that?
and he went undrafted.
Yeah. Just
Four-time
think about
defensive player of the year.
Yes, think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody could guard Shaq one-on-one by himself in that prime when he was with the Lakers, but he did.
Yeah, I mean those four guys, and then Zach Randolph, he's known as that, grit and grind with the Grizzlies, and he played with your former teammate Tony Allen, and those two together, no thank you. And then Dennis Rodman, I mean that's what he provided with Jordan, and then Charles Oakley, him and them Pat Riley Knicks with like Anthony Mason and John Starks
Yeah,
playing the
yeah.
Pacers, it was a blood battle.
Yeah, but Oak just brought that different type of toughness, that dog, and he still do to this day. Even though
Yeah.
he almost 60 years old, he still got that dog in him.
Yeah. So next question. I remember hearing around the time of your retirement that you were thinking about becoming a coach. But what ultimately led to you becoming the analyst that you are? You're on ESPN. Before that, you were making appearances on Fox Sports, Undisputed with Shannon and Skip. Now you're on The Jump. Now you're on Hoop Streams. Now you're doing a little bit of everything.
Well, it all started, I did the Woj podcast, and my thing was that all the franchises that I played with, they knew what type of guy I was. They knew, that I really eat, sleep, and breathe basketball. They notice about me. They all offer me some type of coaching job. But I wanted to get my name out there because in my eyes, I don't think former big men that played in the league get the respect that they deserve. And so I wanted to be the next head coach in the NBA. And that was one of my major goals. And so I wanted to go on these shows and talk basketball to get my knowledge out there, not only to the fan base of the NBA, but I wanted GMs and executives and owners to hear me talk. And what ended up happening is that I go and I do the Woj podcast that goes pretty damn good. All of a sudden I make an ESPN run, Fox run, and all of a sudden I go to my Twitter and I'm doing my own analyst play-by-play during the playoffs, and then all of a sudden I'm getting calls, and they want me here, they want me there. And what people don't understand is that for my first year, last year, every show that I did for free. Like I never charged anybody. I did every single show I did for free. And that was because, I was enjoying it, and I also wanted to show that dedication to it. You know what I'm saying? Well, it was like, hold on, man, Perk is serious about this. And all of a sudden I started really, really enjoying the media. Like I'm talking about I'm like, hold on, man, this is pretty cool. I get to watch games, something that I do anyway, and then go talk about basketball, something that I could do all day long. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, hold on, man, this is pretty easy. I'm able to fly here, come back home, be around my family, go to the studio, be there for 6 in the morning. I'm out by noon. You know, I didn't say my piece and did what I needed to do. And it's just like, hold on, man, this is pretty exciting. And all of a sudden, the coaching just started fading away,
Yeah.
just like all the way into the sunset, where it's like, man, I'm loving this media stuff. So, you know, at the end of the day, man, I'm gonna tell you something, Reed, like give you some advice on certain things. You know, like I love what you're doing with your podcast, and I respect everyone that, you know, that's doing it, and you're very knowledgeable. My thing is never stop working. Like, you know, like never, you could never learn, you could never not, you could learn something new every day. So like my advice to you, like I practice. So, you know, I practice. I go back and watch my old YouTube clips. Like when you post this podcast, I'm gonna go back and watch it. I may watch it 3 or 4 times. I want to see how you done. I want to see how I did on it. I want to see, you know, was the conversation right? You know, if you want to correct yourself on certain areas, you know, if you relax, if you cool, if you calm, it's a lot that goes into it that people don't even see behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? And like seriously, man, like you sitting up here and you holding your composure, you real professional. Here you are, you talking with your boy Perk across the board, and I'm feel like it's a genuine conversation. I'm respecting everything that you're saying. Like everything you saying, I could tell you did your homework. You know the game of basketball, and that's great, man. But my thing to you is never stop working, even on your off days, because that's how you get better and that's how you get great. So even if you know you just having a discussion with, you just decide to do a Zoom call with like 3 or 4 of your friends or whatever, and you just want to talk basketball for an hour. Yeah, you could talk and debate basketball, but in your mind, what you're doing is I'm sharpening up my skills. I'm sharpening up my skills. I'm getting better. I'm adding, okay, let me go back and look at this. Maybe I could add a little bit more charisma. Maybe I could have said this. You know, a thing that I'm working on is that, you know, I want to take out when I say too much to me. I start sentences off saying to me is like this. No, I want to adjust that, take that out of my vocabulary and address it another way and try to go about it a different way. So, you know, at the end of the day, man, I applaud what you're doing. I really like this whole setup that you got going on. That was just some advice to you, but that's how it started, man. I just started taking a liking into it. And people think that it's just waking up and you know, you just watch games and go talk. Nah, man, like you gotta really do your homework. You gotta be ready for someone that's gonna counter you on set and say something, and then you say you may speak to a point, and they counter you and say, well, this happened. So what do you have to say about that? You can't get stuck. So you got to make sure you do your research. You got to make sure you're watching games. You got to make sure that you actually is a basketball mind and a student of the game. Like that's the guys that get ahead. So, you know, just on my first stint, I did every show for free. I wasn't in for it for the money. But then all of a sudden I'm like, hold on, man, I can make a career out of this. And I started taking it more serious. So that's why I'm at today.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really appreciate that a lot. The advice and everything. I, first started getting into basketball. I played basketball 1 year, 7th grade, and I scored 1 point the entire season from a free throw. But whenever I make the joke, whenever I play, because now I'm a college student at West Virginia, whenever I play at the rec, because I just have the love for the game, even though I'm not too good, I always make the joke that I'm the 5'9" white Ben Wallace. I'll I'll back you down and I'll be the dog and get the boards and play defense, but on offense we're playing 4-on-5. But I really fell in love with the game right around, I believe, 6th grade, and it was actually the finals that you were in with the Thunder. And I remember just watching it and just, I grew up kind of the same as you. Football was my passion in terms of like watching sports, football and baseball. My grandfather played football for the University of Virginia, and my dad played football for 2 years at Division III, and played in high school. And I was still playing little league, and I was still playing little league baseball, and I just knew, like, when you're in 7th grade and I was about 5'2" in 7th grade, I wasn't 6'4" dunking. I remember I was just like, I got to be honest, like basketball is not the thing for me. Like, I could be a little Isaiah Thomas point guard, and that was before he became who he was. But, I'm not going to have success in this. So I'm going to focus on other sports. And I just remember watching basketball in that 2012 finals and just watching, LeBron go and KD just go at it. And then, a whole bunch of other stuff. I remember Dwayne Wade from like the Goldfish commercials, and I was like, oh, that's the guy from the Goldfish commercials. And I remember just falling in love with it because it was so evident of who are the best players on the floor. And that's something I love about basketball. With baseball, you could have a guy that hits, a million home runs, and he might not even, play on the field. And with football, I mean, the debate that so many people are having right now, especially, is, is Brady a system quarterback through Belichick, or is he actually talented? But with basketball, great players are great no matter where they go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only 5 people, and you're playing, offense and defense at the same time because it's so fluid. It's not, okay, let's take turns. And, 5 people play 12 to 15 on a roster, and, how many people really play, 8 to 10. So it's, how you said, it's so hard to even make the NBA as opposed to all whatever, NFL has 225 some picks. Baseball has like 20 rounds. But basketball, it's so hard to make the team and then actually stay, as you said. The average playing career is about 3.5 years. But I remember I really, really started paying attention more and more to basketball in 2013, my 7th grade year. My dad and I, we never watch baseball games throughout the season, but we'll watch the World Series.
Right.
And so we turned on the finals, and I hadn't watched any of the finals. And the finals game I happened to turn on is the famous Ray Allen shot. And I remember it was the most energetic I've ever been about sports ever, just like in awe of what had happened. And that, I grew up a Steelers fan. My dad grew up a Steelers fan in '08 when Santonio Holmes had that, touchdown in the back of the end zone, toe tap. I had never, like, as a Steelers fan, I still wasn't as energetic as I was, and not really even knowing. I was like, who's Ray Allen? Your former teammate. I was like, who's that? And just watching it. And I remember that, I was like, I want to know as much about basketball as I can. So, I mean, I just started reading all types of books. I read Bill Simmons' book. I read The Breaks of the Game about the 77 Blazers with Bill Walton. I read all types of books on the '84 draft, NBA TV on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's how I really came to understand who you were and appreciate you. And then it's not just that, but, from all the books that I read and all the analysts that I watch and all the podcasts that I listen to, how we talked about that you can't just base everything off of numbers. Anybody can go and Google, oh, well, guess what? Devin Booker is averaging this many points, so he's good. But, you got to look into that type of stuff.
Yeah, right.
There's more than just, who shows up on the box score. How we talked about with you, like, screen assists and just the defensive IQ and the switch and the communication. That stuff doesn't show up. There's no number to record that. And that's one thing that I've really started to, like, pay attention to, because I'm going to college and I'm majoring in sports management because I'm ultimately want to be a general manager. But I'm minoring in sports communication so I can, take journalism classes and, learn about writing and learn about podcasts. And that's what made me wanted to do this is, basketball has been the most important thing in my life since that Ray Allen shot. In junior year in high school, my research project was about NBA stats. Last year, my senior capstone project, and my college stats that I took in high school, both of those projects were about NBA stats and everything, and just looking into it. That's all I talk about. I remember, like, there's times where, I just go to my dad and I talk to him about 1:30 or 2 in the morning on school nights, and just talk to him about basketball and my ideas and opinions and what all I think could happen. And he just sits there and looks at me. He's like, how do you know all this stuff?
Right,
And,
right.
that was happening at a younger age, 8th, ninth grade. And then that's kind of when I realized, like, you know, how my dad told me, if you love something, pursue a career in it. And I was like, I love basketball, and now what I like to see, because it gives me still hope and opportunity, is former players, not just former players, getting the opportunity for general manager. The Knicks, they just signed the former agent. The Lakers are doing well with Rob Pelinka, former agent.
Mhm.
You have Daryl Morey, who was just working at a analytics firm and got hired by the Celtics as a lower level. And now what he's doing with the Rockets with two of your former teammates and Harden and Russ, that just gives me hope. And, that's what I mean is I remember I was sitting there. I just worked because since I'm in college and, this whole Corona pandemic going on, I'm just trying to work to make some money for next year and everything. And I'm working at a landscaping company, just super long hours, like 10 to 12-hour days, waking up at like 6:30 and going in. I mean, on Tuesday this week, when I originally had reached out to you, I just finished mulching about 4 tons of mulch from the back of the truck. And it's just, while I was doing that, I had my headphones in and I was listening to podcasts, because that's what, like, kind of what you said is you can
Mhm.
always improve. And, you pull something from this. It's kind of like when you play basketball. It's like, oh, what if I could do, you know, the dream shake down in the lower block? And what if I can do, Kevin McHale's up and under and everything here? And what do I do on this? It's the same thing for me, for podcasts and writing and the people that can't play. Because, I remember like 2 months ago, I was like celebrating and everything because I just touched rim for the first time. So so
Right.
it's like I don't really know, because it's like obviously, now that I'm in college especially, it's like there's no way that I'm gonna become a basketball player unless I somehow turn into Dennis Rodman and grow like a foot in the summer. But just like, what can I learn from so many different people? What can I learn from Woj? What can I learn from Bill Simmons? What can I learn from Brian Windhorst and all that? And just
Well,
pull something a little bit while creating my own like personality and my niche and finding everything. And that's why I was like, I'm just gonna go for it and try to start a podcast. And because everybody's always like, how do you know so much? Whatever. And I was just like, you know what? Now's the time to start a podcast. I mean,
mhm.
Amazon is out of podcast mics. Thank goodness I've had this for about a year. Um, and I was just like, I just want to share not just my knowledge for the game, but my love of the game. And I
Mm,
remember I
strong.
was just like, I just want to, my first episode, I'm just gonna like put all my eggs into the basket and just shoot for something. And that's when I tweeted, I was like, the only person I want to, you know, interview for my first podcast is you. And just because that's the reason is just, I watched you as a player. You were one of the first 10 players I ever watched play a basketball game, like an actual basketball game. Like, I had heard who Michael Jordan and Kobe and Shaq were, but I actually watched a game from start to finish. You were one of the first 10. And then just to see your how we talked about your career path into an analyst and someone that I look up to in terms of the information, the insider information, and just not just that, but you're always you're always talked about in terms of the respect that people have for you. People I'm in, there's so many different articles and players and everything that say how such a great teammate you are. I mean, if Kevin Garnett, first ballot Hall of Famer, him, Kobe, and Tim Duncan in the same Hall of Fame class, if he's calling you one of the greatest teammates he ever played with, regardless of how good you were as a player or whatever, the fact is that you were respected by everyone. And, Kevin Garnett, not even knocking you, Kevin Garnett's one of the top 25 basketball players of all time.
Easy, easy.
Easily, if not higher. And,
Yeah.
Kevin Durant is a top 15. LeBron is one or two,
Right,
depending on who
right.
you ask. You know,
Nah, man, but for real, Reed, man, you going on the right path, man, and man, really, I appreciate, man, me being your first guest on your pod, man, and I look, basketball minds recognize basketball minds, and when I first heard you, when you was talking just now, I'm like, hold on, this is not pre-rehearsed. this kid actually knows his stuff, and I see it in you. And here's some advice too that I'm gonna give you. Like, it's cool to go and read and listen to other people, you know, like myself, Brian Windhorst, or whoever the case may be. But just remember, they have to do their research also. So at the end of the day, I will tell you this: YouTube, film won't steer you wrong, man. Like, if you want to know something precise, man, go Google it and go watch film. Like, when I want to know something about a player, I go watch film. I like, still to this day, go watch film. Watch as many games as you can. I know you working, and that was an interesting point, because when we get off this pod, I'm gonna give you something to go do. And here's the thing: I want you to go Google Sam Presti and see what he was before he started working in the NBA, and you'll be surprised.
I will do. And like you said, for the research, I mean, like, I have my notebook of all the stuff, you know, from beginning to end, and some questions, and then more here and everything. And, you know, I was just like, you know, it's the same hard work that you put into school and working out and everything. Why not put it into, you know, passion, like the podcast and everything?
Yeah, man. And you doing it, and you're not see, the thing I love is not only that you have a great basketball mind, but you're not taking any shortcuts. You see what I'm saying? Like, when you be at work and grinding with your landscaping business, which you're working for a landscaping company, and on top of that, you got your headphones on, listening to podcasts, and still doing two things at once and getting that knowledge, man. That's not shortcutting. That's hard work. Like, that's putting in time, and that's what it takes. And a lot of people don't understand that. And at the rate you're going to get where you want to be at, man. Trust me, because one thing I know is that when it comes down to NBA owners, NBA executives, they're always looking for a diamond in the rough. They're not looking for who everybody else wants. They make their name off of discovering that diamond in the rough, that one guy that no one knows about, that I gotta go grab. And that could be you. That will be you at the rate that you're going, man. And I appreciate you having me on as your first guest. You have my phone number, so is there any basketball thing you want to discuss or want to know, let me know. I'm always here, man. I got one phone, so you can always hit me up, man. And I applaud you, man, for how you going about this, because there's no shortcuts with you. I see that you really, really know the game of basketball. And, man, once you go read that, go Google Sam Presti, and then once you finish looking at his whole, you know, his whole lifestyle and how he got to the league and stuff like that, send me a text. But my phone is always open, man. I appreciate you having me on, brother, and there's much respect, for real.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, definitely, you know, just feel a good connection with you. Just how you said basketball minds, and how, you know, it's crazy for me to think about, you know, if I had gone back in the time machine and told 12, 13-year-old Reed, hey, you see that guy right there in the blue uniform? You're going to be talking with him one day. And just, you know, like someone like, you know, how your idols become your peers in that type of way, is that, you know, you're still someone that I look up to. But now the fact that we've done this is just, we have that personal connection now. And, you know, I mean, when I like, so I sent out that tweet, and right when I got home from work, and then got in the shower. And when I got out of the shower, like, you had already responded and whatnot. And I was just like, I just screamed like, oh my God. And like, at first my mom and dad were like, are you okay? Like, did you fall? Like, did you slip? Cause you just got out of the shower. I like grabbed a towel and ran out there, and was like, look, like, Kendrick Perkins responded to me and like wants to like appear on my podcast. And they were like, wait, the podcast that like you were saying that like you were going to start? And I was like, yeah, like he wants to like do it. And they're like, no way. And I was like showing, and I was, you know, texting my friends. Also shout out Will Abrazizi. He told me to do this. He's the biggest Celtics fan I know.
Hey, shout out Will. What's up, Will?
Yeah, when I told him, he was one of the first people I told, because not just, you know, the big deal, but former Celtic, won a ring with them. And so shout out Will. But just, you know, that's what I mean, is just, I appreciate you so much for doing this with me.
No problem, man.
And I hope to have you on again sometime.
I tell you what, brother, you got a basketball friend in me. So you got my number, man, and I'm here. Anytime you want to talk hoops, I'm right here, man. Just give me a call.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, I definitely, want to do something, maybe even a little draft thing with you and Rashad Phillips.
Yep.
Shout out Yoda.
Yoda for sure. That's my guy.
No agendas.
No,
Everybody go listen and follow that. I was watching that today.
Yoda is my guy, man. Yoda is very, 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 very knowledgeable, man.
Yeah, if I was the general manager, how I wanted to be, I would hire him. I mean, you saw the other day, Spencer Dinwiddie player was like, if I was a GM, that's who I'd hire. And if it's not just like people are like, oh, who is this guy? He's being respected by players.
Yes.
Now, that's a different thing. If anybody can sit there and say, this is what I would do, this is what I would do, this is who I would hire. But when the guys in the league and playing right now, especially someone of Spencer Dinwiddie's caliber, he's up there, sixth man of the year candidate and stuff, and was playing great for the Nets. When he's recognizing Rashad Phillips, that says something. And that's how I was, when you were talking about how you respect me, I was just like this is unreal. In high school, whatever, everybody was just like, what's up with you in basketball? Like, why are you doing this so much? Like, get a life. And I was like, you guys don't understand. It's like, it's not a hobby. It's a passion. Like, this is what I want to do with my life.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, I'm a fan. Like, oh yeah, who's your favorite team? And it's like, my favorite team is the Milwaukee Bucks. Mainly because of Giannis, but also when they had Malcolm Brogdon, because I grew up and lived 30 minutes away from UVA, so I got to watch Malcolm Brogdon and Joe Harris and DeAndre Hunter and all them. So
go to work.
Yeah, and so it's just like I was just who's your favorite team and stuff like that, or like, oh, it's so easy for anybody to say stuff like, I think this player is better than this player because he scores more points. But that's what I mean is like when you like look into it more and do the research and look at every possible aspect and make it your passion. And that's what I mean. It's like, I remember at some point last year, my dad and my mom, like, I had a bad grade in a class at one point, and they were like, we're going to have to take away the NBA from you until you get that grade back up. Because I had skipped a homework assignment to make a list to make like my own little list or whatever. And
do it to you.
And so I was just like, you know what? I was like, well, what if I do NBA for school? And so they were like, so that's when I was like, no, it's actually for my, me getting in trouble is actually how I ended up doing my capstone project about the correlation between lottery draft picks from 2011 to 15 and how successful they are in their first 5 years of the league in the NBA. And the first one, the number one pick was the top because it was like Kyrie, Anthony Davis. But the 15th pick was the second, actually, because they had Giannis and Kawhi there, which boosted them. But, I mean, thank you again so much. And
thank you for having
you on. Definitely, I really hope that we do this again. And from the sounds of it, we will. And, I consider you like a big brother now, in terms of the basketball world.
Little brother in the basketball world, man. So let me know when you go drop it, man, so I can retweet it and put it on my Instagram.
Oh, I will. I'll be probably editing the audio for a little bit and put it up on Spotify and Apple Music first. For everybody that's listening, you're listening to Not Your Normal Read, available on Spotify and Apple Music and podcasts. And then I'm also going to go in and edit the video and add some, some of your highlights and some of the players we were talking about. And that'll be up probably a little later after the podcast comes out as the video on the YouTube channel. Still Not Your Normal Read with 2 E's because that's my name. And so for sure. And, who knows, 20 years from now when I'm getting hired by a general manager, you could maybe start your coaching career.
Don't forget about me, all right?
Oh, I won't. All right. Thank you, Perk.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.